The gaming world, the video game world, the card space world, nerd culture is filled with a lot of people who have been rejected in some way, shape, or form from society. Magic the Gathering is, once again, further digging themselves into a hole as they have come out. They're one of their top dogs over there, and says the head designer says Wizards of the Coast is avoiding the term witch because it's, quote, a real world religious identifier. So that's where we're at right now in society, as we are just totally not saying the word witch here during Halloween season.
Yeah, of all times they do this during Halloween season.
And they are considering retiring druid and shaman for the same reasons. So here we are.
Can't offend the druids out there.
I love how they're considering if that's too offensive or not. It's like, should we get offended by druid and
Will the
shaman?
druids get mad? How many of them are going to rise up?
I love it that it's that this discussion took place on Tumblr as well, because of course.
Did it?
And
Oh my!
Yeah, actually.
Yeah, and so
Tumblr was
someone was
still
just
saying.
like, "Hey." They're like, because he's like, oh yeah, witch, this is a religious identifier. We already don't have them as, we can't have them as like a class for this reason. And then someone's like, well, you have druid and you have druid in there and shaman. And he's like, good point. We should probably retire those two. It just gave him ideas. We're supposed to be a gotcha.
I don't even know how Magic the Gathering exists anymore. It's like every patch they're removing more and more and more stuff until like the only thing you're going to be fighting is an ant. And then they're going to be like, you know what? That's offensive towards ants. And now Magic is just nothing. You just sit there and eat lettuce or something, and then that'll be offensive.
I guess so.
You just have blank cards that you trade back and forth.
Previously, the tabletop publisher had removed a history of enslavement from the lore in Dungeons and Dragons due to some players finding the language to be, quote, offensive to Black people. So here's the thing. I love sentences like this due to some players finding the language offensive to Black people. Not even like Black people finding this language offensive to Black people, just some players. So what that means is, once again, some 20-something-year-old white girl got offensive.
White Karen.
And got offended. And her boyfriend was like, yeah. And, her boyfriend, who, probably watched her get plowed by another guy.
Whoa.
Wow. His boyfriend's probably just desperate. That's all.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So the boyfriend gets his girlfriend's boyfriend to do all the work. It's whatever. Anyway, sorry.
This is the best lore ever.
I think it's amazing where, once again, we're dealing with words. The term witch is being removed, or they're avoiding it because it's, quote, a real world religious identifier. By who? Wiccans?
Yeah, I guess. I think what's crazy about this is like nerd culture in general, especially tabletop nerds, were some of the biggest rejects in society. And now they're taking all of that and everybody has to conform. All the nerds have to conform to whatever the mainstream is deeming offensive and this and that. So you're taking a culture that already was filled with the rejects of society and you're forcing them, you're hijacking their thing they had and you're forcing them to conform. It's gotten so stupid.
Yeah. My favorite thing about what you just said is you called Adam a reject of society, and I love that.
I'm okay with that.
Aren't we all though?
Yes, we are. Yes, absolutely. Look, I've talked about this before, but let's just be really, really honest with ourselves, right? The gaming world, the video game world, the card space world, nerd culture is filled with a lot of people who have been rejected in some way, shape, or form from society, right?
Mm-hmm.
They either feel outcast, they're on the spectrum somewhere, right? Let's just be very honest about it. That is the case. If you've ever been to a gaming convention, gaming event, that is the case. It's the reality. And I'm sorry that the reality hurts your feelings, but that is the space that we live in. And so I don't think that's offensive at all, but I do think it's funny that you called out on
that. I mean, I grew up a homeschool nerd. And so I always felt comfortable in nerd spaces because it was like I wasn't integrated in the mainstream society in general until I started college, and it was scary. And so it's like, okay, the nerds, the metalheads, all that, that's where I felt comfortable. And now it's just like, now these spaces are completely hijacked and Yeah, it's sad.
If you enjoyed that clip, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Would greatly appreciate that so you can find more clips on the channel. And of course, come join us live Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Central Time for our live Side Scrollers podcast. We would love to see you there.